Welcome, everyone. It's my sincere pleasure to welcome everyone to the annual Virginia F. Cutler Lecture. We're so appreciative of your presence here, your attendance here. I want to acknowledge with a special welcome the family and friends of Virginia Cutler and all those who have been instrumental in setting up the endowment for the Cutler Lecture. I also want to extend an appreciation to those of us that are joining this presentation over Zoom. I think a number of Lee's family members are making sure to take good notes, and we'll quiz him later about this. Also want to acknowledge the presence of some of our associate deans. Associate Dean Michaela Dufer and Jeff Noakes are here representing the College of Family, Home, and Social Sciences. Also, welcome to all students, faculty, friends, everyone who's joining us remotely and in person. And I want to draw your attention to a brief biography of Virginia F. Cutler that's in the program that accompanies this. Her leadership gave voice to families at every level, locally, nationally, and globally. She lit the way for many faculty in the School of Family Life as we continue to conduct and apply research to strengthen the world's families. We're so appreciative of that. Please join me in a round of applause in appreciation for Sister Cutler. Our opening prayer today will be offered by Augie Erdenbader, a PhD student in marriage and family therapy here at BYU. After the opening prayer, we'll turn time over to Dr. Shane Anderson for a brief introduction, and then after that, it'll be Lee's time in the spotlight, which I know he is leaning into. So strap in for a great presentation. Augie?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this evening. We can be able to come together and learn from the work and preparation of Professor Lee Jensen. And please bless him with Thy Spirit and calm delivery and clear mind. And please help us to have open heart and attentive minds, and help us to learn what we did today. Maybe we can apply in our life and work. And we invite Thy Spirit humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
It's my honor to introduce Dr. Lee Johnson this evening. Lee grew up in a family of educators. His grandfather taught chemistry, his father geography, and his mother math. Naturally, if you know Lee, he rebelled and decided he would study engineering as an undergraduate student at BYU. Thankfully, while on his mission in Korea, he realized that he wanted to do something different. He wanted to help people and decided he would study psychology when he returned home. In what I consider divine intervention, the psychology class he wanted to take when he returned was full, and a friend suggested he enroll in Intro to Family Sciences instead. It was there that he discovered the field of family therapy, and he was hooked. After earning a PhD in marriage and family therapy from Kansas State University, Lee's rebellion against his family's profession ended, and he began his career as an educator. For the past 27 years, he has been training students as marriage and family therapists, beginning at Friends University, then the University of Georgia, and finally for the last 12 years at BYU. His influence on this world has been profound. Let me start with the most important. Lee is, first and foremost, a husband and a father. He and his wife Angela have been married for 33 years and have raised 3 amazing children together and will soon welcome their first grandchild. Lee's also one of the leading scholars in the field of marriage and family therapy. It's impossible to do a literature search on process research in family therapy without coming across his name throughout the search. Tonight, we're going to hear more about how his research is changing the lives of therapists and the clients that they serve around the world. His influence as an educator has been just as profound. His students have gone on to be clinicians, clinical researchers, and educators. My conservative estimate is that students he has chaired have provided over 300,000 hours of therapy. That number jumps to over 1 million if we include students who he has influenced in the classroom or as a clinical supervisor. 7 of his doctoral students currently serve in faculty positions around the country, where his influence continues to be felt by the students they train. I've been lucky enough to be one of those students. Lee was there for me at 2 major professional crossroads in my career. I'm an introvert, a severe introvert, and interviews are among my least favorite thing in the world. I survived my interview at the University of Georgia, but didn't feel very good about it. When I found out that I had been accepted into the doctoral program with Lee as my advisor, I was ecstatic. I later learned that Lee, as a fellow introvert, advocated strongly for the admissions committee to take a chance on me. While I look back on that now as one of the life-altering crossroads in my life, after a few months in the program, I wasn't sure I made the right decision. You see, Lee scared me. He was blunt, he was direct in his feedback, and his feedback to me wasn't very positive very often. It was a few months later, though, that I learned that underneath his gruff exterior, Lee's a teddy bear. He loves his students, loves and cares for them deeply, and he will fight tooth and nail for his students. 8 years after I graduated, Lee was there for me at another crossroad in my professional life, as he encouraged me repeatedly, over and over again, through multiple emails, texts, and calls, to interview for a position as a faculty member at BYU. The chance to associate with him on a daily basis weighed heavily in my decision to come here. In the last 10 years, I've come to know and respect him even more, as we have worked together, taught together, and traveled together. I'm grateful to call him my colleague, and more importantly, my friend. Without further ado, Dr. Lee Johnson.
I'm a crier, and I asked Shane to do that because he knows me better than anyone in my professional life, I would say. I didn't know it was going to be that good, or I would have asked someone else, because then I would not have to compose myself before I started talking. Thank you, Shane. I appreciate that. He's a good friend. And I'm equally lucky to have him in my life. And I could say that about all my students. They've blessed my life immensely. So I will compose myself and cry again later, but not right now. Maybe. Everyone scanned the program. Can I move on to the next? That's the slide they made me include. It's pretty, but I like this one better. So I want to echo Dr. Bean's statements about thanking the people, the associate deans, the dean's office, my department chairs over the years at BYU have been extremely supportive of this project and what I'm talking about. I wouldn't have done it without them. I'm also deeply grateful for the Cutler family and their continued work and involvement in our college and in our department to make things like this possible. I'm going to talk a little bit about my program of research and how that came about throughout this process, because I think that's more interesting than a bunch of numbers. If it's not, play on your phone. Enjoy the hour of Instagram. But I think it's much more interesting, so I'm going to talk about it from kind of that vein. I also want to thank a few other people before I get started. I've had amazing mentors throughout my life and amazing colleagues that have worked on this project. I'm going to talk a lot about me in this project, but when I say that, I want you to think of we, because there are hundreds of people behind the scenes that have helped with this throughout the years and have been a part of this. 2 of them are in this room. One is Dr. Shane Anderson, who has helped me over the last 10 years, and Rick Miller, who's there at the back. Rick, wave so everyone can get to know you. Rick was doing a lot of research parallel to what I was doing, and we were fortunate enough to come together at Kansas State and become friends and colleagues. And then he did some other things, and I did some other things. We came back together and started working on this project. And so Dr. Miller has been heavily involved in this research, and it would not be where it is today without him. So I want to make sure I thank those people. I have lots of other colleagues and friends I could name, but I'm not going to, because I will inevitably leave some people out. But I want to start. So I got an email from Dr. Holmes about a year ago. I was in Orlando at AMFT. It was after the conference. My wife and I were staying for a couple days for fun. And I got an email, and Dr. Holmes said, "Hey, you've been selected to give the Cutler Lecture. It's a great honor." And I'm like, "What's the Cutler Lecture? And is it really a great honor?" And so I immediately Googled the Cutler lecture, right? I'm like, I got to figure this out. And I saw the people that were doing this, and I'm like going, that was a bad idea, because they're really people I respect. So I'm like, I need to figure this out, because for me to do something, I have to get behind it, right? I'm going to do this lecture, but I got to figure it out. So I started looking at the Wikipedia page for Virginia Cutler. I started looking at other things. I'm like, wow, she was an amazing person. And I found this quote. And it says, Dr. Cutler spent her entire life educating people on the home and family. She also cared deeply about women and people in other nations. And her career took her across the globe as she served people in Thailand, Indonesia, and Ghana. And I'm going to cry again. As I read this, I thought, I belong. I fit here. I've been doing this throughout my career, and it's getting bigger and bigger as I go, but I belong. And so I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I think when you guys are starting research careers or doing research, find where you belong. Because it's easy. There's places where we belong. And then the other thing I hope you get from this is that what I've done has not happened in a year or a week, or it's not one idea in a room. This is built over, I don't know, I started my master's degree in 1993. So how many years is that? 30? 20 some? I can't do the math. Do the math in your head. But I've been doing this for a long time, okay? And so it builds over time. So when you start thinking about, I want to do something cool, keep working at it and you'll get there, is my message. And if you don't think this is cool, that's okay. I think it's cool. The other thing you know about research is anything we do, we think is amazing. And sometimes it's really boring. And so again, if you're bored, please play on your phone and enjoy whatever you get from this. Okay, to start off, I want you to think of two things. So, number one is imagine or think about when you go to a doctor and they don't ask very many questions. You just show up and they're like, I think you have this and here's your antibiotic. I think you have this, and they don't really get to know you and ask you a lot of questions. What would you do? I mean, it takes forever to get an appointment sometimes, so I'm going to go to this appointment, but I'm finding someone else, right? We think that people need to know stuff, right? It's interesting to me that mental health is one of the few professions that does not do a lot of background information before you show up. And so that's kind of one of the impetus of this, is like when I go to the doctor, I've been to therapy before, and they're like, if they don't ask me a lot of questions at the beginning, I'm like, what? They don't know me. How are they intervening? So think about how uncomfortable that would be, but therapists don't really do that, okay? This will make sense later. The other thing I want you to think about is when you don't know what's going on, what have you done in the past when you don't know what to do? Okay? This is kind of what drives me. When I don't know what to do, I didn't know. I got asked to do the Virginia Cutler. Here's an example. I got asked the Virginia Cutler lecture. I'm like, is that an honor? I think it is. I don't know. I'm going to go find out. And the more I found out, I'm like, oh, I could do that. And then the more I thought about me and this, I'm like, I can do it. So I think when we don't know what to do, we need to move forward and think. Like, stop and think and move forward. Stop and think and move forward. Okay? That's the pattern I've used throughout my career. Is I'm going to stop and find out more information, use forward. And that's kind of what we do with our therapists. If our therapists don't know what to do, get more information and move forward. Okay? Okay. So those are kind of the stage that we're setting. Now I'm going to start with a story. To understand this, I think I have to go back, because I was thinking about, as I was preparing this, I started thinking about my career and how things built to get me to where I am today. Okay? And so I was thinking, I went back to my master's degree. And I went to Utah State. I just started a marriage and family therapy program. I was actually in the first cohort that went there, which was really cool and really weird because they're trying to figure things out all at once. And it's a great program. I would encourage anyone to apply there. Even though the people I work with have long retired, it's still a great program. And I was trying to decide, the program at the time was there's not a thesis option. You were doing a thesis. So there were 6 of us in the cohort. We're all doing theses. We're getting ready to do this. And I'm talking to my major professor, and I tell her I want to do a clinical project. And she's like, why would you want to do that? I'm like, well, I'm in a clinical program. Why wouldn't I want to do that? Clueless, a little bit clueless. You'll understand there's a theme of cluelessness throughout the beginning of my career that hopefully changes over time. And she said, that's okay, but it's going to delay your graduation. And the other thing you need to know about me is I'm very direct, I'm a teddy bear inside, and I'm extremely stubborn. I call it passionate, but people in my life have called me stubborn. So we're going to go with passionate during this conversation as opposed to stubborn. And so when she's saying it's going to delay your graduation, I'm like, I don't care. I want to do a clinical project. She's like, okay. So we designed this study on pretreatment change. And pretreatment change is when people call in for therapy, they start making changes in their life before they see their therapist. And so we thought, our idea was, we're going to ask people to have a pre-treatment change. If they do, they're in the study, if they want to be, sign consent forms, all that good stuff. And the therapists, we're going to randomly assign them to a group where therapists notice the pre-treatment change as part of treatment, and another group where they ignore the pre-treatment change and see who gets better. And as a beginning researcher therapist, I'm thinking, this is going to change the world. This is going to be awesome. We're going to really find something cool. And we found stuff that was kind of cool, right? It kind of helps, but not really, all that kind of stuff. But when I go back and think on this project, and it was a lot of work. I had 39 cases in this study. And I would go to the clinic at night to remind therapists of the protocol, help them through the protocol, go back home and blah, 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 all this stuff. A lot of work for 39 cases. And we got it published, we did some presentations on it. It doesn't get cited a whole lot. It's not really all that groundbreaking. But what I learned from that for me, is meaningful. Does that make sense? And I learned that clinical research is really hard. Like, it's not just pass out some surveys in a classroom, right? You have to show up and get things done. And then the other thing I learned is that I need to help therapists engage more. These were my colleagues, right? They were doing a thesis too, but they had lives. And I falsely assumed that since we all love research and we all want to graduate, they would magically follow the protocol of my thesis and get things done, right? They didn't. Not because they were trying to sabotage it or me. They did the best they could, but they're busy too. So I'm thinking, they're going, this is going to be a long career. I got to figure some things out. After that, and I graduated on time, by the way, so my stubbornness paid off a little bit. I graduated on time, and then I moved to Kansas State for my PhD. And at Kansas State, I had some wonderful mentors. That's where I met Dr. Miller. I was not fortunate to be his student, but he was on my committee, and we worked closely together on all the projects, so he was a great mentor. Dr. Wright was actually my major professor at Georgia. At university, I worked with him at Georgia too. He was my major professor at Kansas State. And he probably doesn't remember this. He's actually listening online, unless he forgot. He said he was going to. But he probably doesn't remember this, but we were talking about my dissertation ideas. And again, I was like, I kind of want to do a clinical dissertation. And he's like, why would you want to do that? I'm like, well, it's a clinical program. Why would I not want? We had similar conversation, right? Stubborn. You start to see this stubborn, passionate side coming in. And I'm going, that's what I want to do. He's like, well, okay. Well, shortly after that, I'm sitting in a room with other of my colleagues who are talking about their dissertations. And they have these, you all know this, like at BYU there's lots, Flourishing Families, Project Media, there's these data sets that you have access to. Back in the day, you could download these data sets, hundreds of cases, thousands of cases for family studies projects and different projects. And I'm listening to these people talk about what they're doing their dissertation on, I'm going, I'm really stupid or not knowing, because I'm like going to collect my own data and all this stuff. I don't know how I'm going to do that. And I was pretty jealous. I had no idea where it was going to come out. So second year of my program, I'm sitting in a meeting, and at Kansas State, they got the contract for family preservation in the area. If you don't know what family preservation is, it's where people have to, if you've been reported for child abuse or neglect, if it's possible, they will refer the family to a family preservation program where they try to keep the family together, right? Therapists go in there, social workers, try to keep the family together. That was my internship. I'm sitting in a meeting shortly after that project started, and the director of Kansas Children's Service League, who knew well what she was doing, says, hey, we need to start assessing clients to help our therapists, to help you guys do a better job. Now, again, as an arrogant PhD student, because a lot of PhD students assume they know everything, and I was one of them. Again, I think it's passion, but we'll go with arrogance for this one. And I rose my hand, and I said, hey, I think we could do it better. Assuming we just have a discussion about that, she says, great, go do it. And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. What? She found us some money, and we started a project. And this is kind of where the Practice Research Network, my research kind of started to take off, right? So what we did is we had assessments on paper. Again, we didn't have the internet. I'm dating myself, but I didn't have an email address until I was at Kansas State. That's how my life evolved, right? So we put assessments in an envelope. We sent them with the therapist to the client. The client completed them between the sessions, sent them back with the therapist. We got the envelope back in the clinic, and then we key punched stuff in, scored them in FHSS, filled out a sheet with scores on it, and sent it to the therapist in their box, and then they could use that, hopefully. You with me? A lot of process going, right? We had lots of steps. People would forget to take them to their clients. People would forget to bring them back. Clients wouldn't fill them out. We would get busy and not key punch them in time. This process took weeks to get the feedback back to the therapist. But again, I'm not thinking about this as an intervention. I'm thinking about this as a data, like this is a way to collect data, right? I'm still thinking about this as a researcher. In fact, it wasn't until I got to BYU where that changed. So we're doing all this process, and that's where I got my data for my dissertation. So I did all this work, 43, I upped my number of cases to 43, but a lot of work. And that project was on the Therapy Alliance and home-based therapy. A little more world-changing than the first one, but still kind of just okay, right? But at this point, here's what I learned. I still need to find a way to engage therapists, right? They're doing too much, it's too busy, they're not following through. Why would they? They're worried about their clients. So it's not that they hate research, they're just busy, right? The process needs to be much faster. The example I like to use when we try to recruit clinics for this is, if you think about COVID, and it took 2 weeks to get a COVID test back, how many people would you have infected, right? It was a 2-week average turnaround. Clients fill it out, they bring it back, we score it, give it to them. If the therapists use it, it's a 2-week turnaround. It's irrelevant information, right? They've been 2 or 3 sessions of therapy, things have changed. It wasn't working like we wanted it to, so we need to involve that. And then as a profession, I was like, we got to have bigger data sets for people, right? We need people to use this. We want to move family therapy forward. We needed a way for people to get bigger data to do more cool projects, right? And be able to, for a dissertation, have data they can download or use and do their project and not have to collect a lot of data, okay? So you can kind of see where I'm learning is I kind of have to get hit over the head about 5 times that therapists need something different than just to randomly participate out of their goodwill. And so that's what I took away. So shortly after that, I graduated, and I went to a small university in Kansas City. My campus, Friends University, was in Wichita. I was in Kansas City. And we kept doing that with Kansas Children's Service League. We had someone else who key punched things in, but we kept doing that. And then I moved to the University of Georgia, where I was the clinic director. And that's where Shane came on, and we were doing the same thing. And Rick was starting to do things with AMFT at the time. He was also trying to get other universities involved in collecting data. And it really wasn't working. Other universities were like, that's a great idea, and they'd turn in 1 or 2 cases, right? We need way more than that. And so Rick is investing a lot of time. Shane and I are working at the University of Georgia, investing a lot of time, and since we're there, we're getting better data. And then we started partnering with Auburn University and the University of Connecticut when Shane moved there. And so we're starting to get this to work and getting bigger data sets and things that we can do. But we're still treating it like a research project, right? So as a clinic director, I learned and I started to think about clinical utility. You know, it's rather than think of this as just a research project, I need to think about this differently. What happened? Is the world ending? We need to start thinking about this differently. Does that make sense? So I was at the University of Georgia for 12 years where we kept doing things and learning about this stuff over time really slowly. And then after that, I was fortunate enough to get hired at BYU. Okay? By this point in time, technology has evolved. We've learned some things, and we can actually start to do the project we want to do, that we've been training for all this year, right? From the time I was at Dan's Foods, keep punching in the groceries, helped me be a better researcher, I can now move forward. So here's the things that we needed to consider as we're starting to figure out how do we collect data on a large scale in couple and family therapy clinics. Here's what we learned over the years and what we had to deal with. Number one was there's research. I think this is by Lambert, right? Lambert did this? He was on that study. There's a study that says that therapists are really bad at knowing who's going to get better or worse. They can't predict. They're no better than chance. It doesn't mean their intuition's bad, but long term, if I'm sitting in front of, if Roy's my client, I'm no better than chance at predicting if Roy's going to get better or go worse. I keep working and helping him, but I can't predict. Does that make sense? I'm bad at it. So I need more information. We need to drastically improve the speed, right? It can't be 2 weeks. It can't be 3 weeks. It can't be 3 days. It's got to be immediate. When a client comes in and fills something out, I need results now. And so we were able to do that, right? We need to improve clinical utility. There's got to be a buy-in. How does this help clinic directors? How does this help therapists? It can't just be a data collection thing. It won't work. We've done that years. We've tried that numerous times. It doesn't work. And so we've got to get buy-in, okay? And then we have to account. So as we started talking to clinics, we go to a clinic and we talk, and they're like, wow, this clinic's very different than this clinic. We talk to therapists. I do therapy this way. I do therapy this way. And we're like, this is going to mess with our research. We got to account for that variability, right? How do we account for these variants in clinics to make this valuable? but still be consistent for research, right? So we constantly are thinking about balancing clinic utility and research. And early on in the project, when we first started this back in 2018, we were on research more and clinic utility last. We've kind of flip-flopped because we've learned over the years that better clinic utility leads to better data, leads to better outcomes for the therapist and better client. I'll talk about that in a minute. So we've had to include that. Data protection issues. I had no idea how complex data protection was. Roy's laughing if you can see him. Shane's crying. Data protection is a nightmare. So we designed this, we got things ready to go, and we're like going, wow, we got it, it's encrypted, we're good. Then we start reading HIPAA and find out that HIPAA is one standard, but Texas has another standard, and then we go to another country and they're like, we don't even care about HIPAA, we care about this, blah, blah, blah. And it's constant having to sort that out. Translation, people ask, what's the goal of this project? I'm like, to take over the world. I'm Batman, not really, but I want everyone to use this, right? I want everyone use this. So I really have the vision of lots of people doing this. So we started in America, but then these are the languages we're currently in and the ones we're working on. But when you translate into a language, it's not as simple as Google or hiring a return missionary. Return missionaries are great, nothing against return missionaries, but their Spanish, Korean, whatever you say is not as good as it needs to be for a clinic purpose. Does that make sense? So we got to find translators in country, we got to back translate, all this other stuff. It's a long process. And then the portal, the data collection portal, needs to be in that language as well. So getting that to match what the programmers need is a long process. It's a constant adjustment. And then, we do things a certain way in America, but in Korea they do them differently. In China they do them different. Taiwan's different. We want to honor their values, traditions, and past experiences. This was real apparent when we were in Alaska recruiting some clinics from some native populations in Alaska. We'll go to those clinics, and the director says, listen, this is a great idea, but we've been hurt by researchers so much in the past. This seems a little different because you're giving us data back, right? You're helping us treat people better, but we've been hurt. What are you going to do about that? And Shane and I looked at each other and I don't know. And we started having a conversation with them, and we came to the solution that if anyone requests data from the clinic in Alaska, one of the tribal leaders has to review the proposal and okay it before we give them the data. So we're like, it's your data. We'll help you control that. You get a say. And they're like, that's great. Let's do that, right? So it worked out. But we have conversations like that everywhere we go. Different politics, different views on LGBTQ families, individuals. There's differences across the world. And so what we've done is we have community liaisons. We have people in each country that help us adapt things and help us translate. They help us work with all that. That's been one of the best parts of this project, is getting to know colleagues around the world. It's amazing what we've learned. And then the IRB was a nightmare. That's not a comment on Sandy or Wayne. Sandy and Wayne are amazing, in my opinion. Sandy and Wayne were both extremely helpful in getting this project approved. But when they first saw it, they're like, I don't know what to do with this. And so we had to work with them over and over again to get a proposal that would actually go through the IRB and be approved. And then every time the IRB changes members, we have to do that process again. But Sandy's been extremely helpful. She says, when you get a crazy letter back, it's because I forgot what project it was for. Call me and we'll work through it. And she's been extremely helpful in getting this project going. This project would not be where it is without her and Wayne's help. So we did all that. We organized all that stuff, and the process we came up with is that, I'll show you a picture in a minute about what it looks like, but clients fill things out online, it's scored in real time, and therapists get a graph of progress or not progress on the variables their clinic chooses. So we have a menu people choose from of assessments. They pick which ones are best for their clinic. So the data from every clinic is not the same. It varies from clinic to clinic, but our hope is across clinics, we get enough data on certain questionnaires that we can use it, right? It's easy for things like depression and anxiety and satisfaction. It's a little more sparse when you get to things like eating disorders, when there's clinics that don't see as many of those. But over time, we'll get there. Does that make sense? It also helps us with data that's more diverse. Because in any one clinic, you might get a lot of white people. But when you pool minority clients across clinics, you can actually start to learn what their therapy experience is like. Because we have the numbers to start doing that. So we took all those things into consideration. And again, we're not done. We still evolve over time. New data protection laws come up. Different things come up. Clinics are using this, and they come up against something the clients don't like that's against their cultural values, and we're like, oh, we better figure this out. So it's an ongoing conversation. But we did all this. We had a student program, a beta site, which was also fun because our first student program did in Portuguese, and she left because she graduated, good for her, and the next student came in to take over and didn't speak Portuguese. Had to start over. And so we're like, I didn't know you could program in Portuguese. I've learned a lot about programming, data protection, all that kind of stuff has been fascinating. But we got a beta site, we collected data to kind of get proof of concept, right? It worked out as well as it could with awesome students programming that for us, but we decided we needed to do something different. So then we had some money, thanks to the support of the college and the department and other donors. And in 2018, we started collecting data with our real site, okay? So in the winter, probably November, December, we started collecting data with a couple therapists at BYU, and in early 2019, we started collecting data at other universities in the country and then other clinics. And then we went to, what year did Turkey start? It was our first international. We didn't know, Shane had some students from Turkey is why it was our first international site. Next year, 2020, we started collecting data in Turkey. And then we've got data, like we've got people using those questionnaires all over the world, but we have sites in China, Korea, Taiwan, Turkey. Those are the main countries now, because the other ones like Spain, Portugal, Hungary, places like that, we're still dealing with data protection to get it started. So here's what we found. Here's what we've done. So recently we did an interview of therapists who used the PRN, the Marriage and Family Therapy PRN, and people who used it and dropped out. So we interviewed 16 past therapists, and this is what we found out. So these are the benefits for therapists, is they overwhelmingly reported that using this system where clients give them information before therapy and they get scores and questionnaires, and are they clinically distressed? Are they clinically depressed? Are they not? We give them all that information really quickly. They start using this, and it improves their treatment planning, okay? This is really relevant in Korea. Korea recently, about 6 years ago, introduced a new law that allows anyone in the country to get 6 sessions of couple or family therapy for free at family centers that are organized throughout the country. And I was meeting with them, talking with them, and they were like, you know, we do a lot of good, but the first 2 to 3 sessions are assessment. And I was like, what if I could get that down to less than a half a session? They're like, what? I'm like, I can get that down. They're like, really? And we told them about it. They're like, that's really cool, because they get all this information before the client comes up, they look at it, and then they can start treatment shortly during the first session. So the number of people they could serve increased dramatically. Does that make sense? Because we're improving treatment planning. You know a little bit going in. You know where to ask questions about going in. Okay? Therapists also talked about tracking progress or deterioration. They love the fact that they can see if people are getting better or see if they're getting worse. It's no longer me thinking, Roy's my client. He's like, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm like, he's smiling today. He seems happy. But the rest of his week was crap. I don't know that. But if he's filling out questionnaires about different things, I get better information, right? I'm triangulating the truth. So I get Roy's report, I get my intuition, and I get questionnaires filled out. I can kind of get better at what's going on. And I know if they're getting better or worse. We have numerous anecdotal stories from around the globe of people saying, this client was deteriorating, I showed them the graph, we talked about it, and they started getting better. Okay? Improve therapy relationships. So knowing more about your clients improves that. You talk with them about what's going on, talk about what they put in the questionnaires and how they answered. It goes into the next point where we're collaborating on treatment. It's no longer me giving them therapy. It's them giving me information, me telling them what it means. Therapists overwhelmingly report that this improves collaboration with clients. They feel more collaborative with their clients than just being a therapist with them. Okay? Improve supervision and training. This is used in training clinics, mostly in the United States. But therapists that were in training clinics overwhelmingly report that they love this because it allows them to see if clients are getting better. The biggest question beginning therapists have is, I don't think I'm doing any good. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, you're new, you don't know what you're doing, but you're probably doing some good because you're just being with people and being calm and safe, people start to change, right? So being who you are is helpful. They're doing good. They just need to develop their therapy skills, but they can see people changing. They also need, number one thing they need is confidence. So this lets them know their clients are changing for the better. They can calm down and start learning more. So it improves their training. So here's a picture of what they get. This is a fake data. If you look at the names, it's Han Solo and Leia Organa, because Shane is a Star Wars. I like Star Wars too, so we're both kind of Star Wars, whatever we're called. But you can see how people change over time. You get immediate information, right? And so if you're watching this husband and wife, and she goes down here, that's her, yeah. She goes down here one session, you're like, ooh, what happened this week? Maybe I should talk about that, right? Where they might not tell you. I had a client one time where he was getting better and she was getting worse over time. And I'm like, something's up. My fear was that there was abuse going on. So I thought, I'm not going to show them this graph because he thinks the marriage is great. She thinks it's awful. I'm like, if I show them this graph, it could lead to a fight or someone getting hit. So I met with him individually and said, what's going on? And I showed him the graph. He's like, I didn't show him the graph. I showed her the graph. He's like, I'm happy. We're awesome. I asked her, I said, look at this graph. You're not getting better. What's going on? She says, I don't like the marriage. I love my husband, but if I tell him that, he's going to be really hurt. And I was his therapist. I'm like, whew, no one's hitting anyone. This is a lot easier. But I worked with her to teach her to give her the ability to talk with him about it with me in the room, right, over time, and their graph started going up. I never would have known that without this kind of thing. And we have story after story after story of therapists telling similar things, okay? Over 500 therapists have used this since 2018. So if you add, that's where Shane's getting some of his numbers. If you look at all the people that have used this, the benefit of those people using it with their clients, improving treatment. And you'll see in the next slides how this actually improves treatment. So that's the benefits for therapists. Okay, benefits for clients is they get better outcomes. This is a really fun. This was by one of Shane's students and Shane. I imagine they're working on the publication. But they presented at AMFT last year. And what you need to know is, so this right here, these solid lines are means, and the dotted lines are the 95% confidence interval. This is for weightless control, so meaning no treatment whatsoever. Here's the average people change, and here's the 95% confidence interval. This is community benchmarks. So most clinics you go to are community clinics. Treatment as usual, right? No one's doing any study or anything like that. We're just getting therapy. That's that. And then up here is the gold standard. Randomized controlled trials. That's the effect size for randomized controlled trials and the 95% confidence interval. Okay? What's really cool is that these bars are outcomes for people who have used the PRN. So these are people, clinics who are actually using that, therapists are using it with their clients. And if you look at overall, what's really cool is overall, all clients, all couples, this is couples, right, Shane? All couples, this is the confidence interval. So if this doesn't overlap with this, it's different. So this is better than community therapy. Therapy you get in the general community, using the PRN makes it better, significantly better than normal clinics, just treatment as usual clinics. That are great clinics doing great things, but this makes it better. These are all similar to community. Here's the thing that's really cool. If you have 10 plus sessions when you use the PRN, you are no different than a randomized controlled trial, which is the gold standard for change. So clinics that use the PRN and people that go for 10 sessions or more are actually changing as much as clients in a randomized controlled trial, which has limited so many things down to be just like we're just studying depression, right? It's easier to show change when we've gotten rid of all the extraneous variables. And when we found this out, it's like, this is like somersaults for us, like cheering. It's like, this is really cool that our system is actually creating change in the lives of clients getting therapy. And here's the numbers. We have 3,400, you can read them. Over 3,000 couples, over 1,700 families, and 5,000 individuals have been using this system to help them change in their lives. And we get all the data for that to do research, okay? Which is really cool. So we're helping people. That's why the title of this is Research as an Intervention. This is a research project that is intervening in the lives of people. So we're getting data and intervening, which to me fits the mission of BYU pretty well. Helping the world, researching the world. I know that's not the exact mission, but you get the idea. And we'll talk about this. There's spiritual component here too that we'll get to that is a part of the mission too. Some additional research benefits. We've done a lot of measurement studies. So we had to develop, the first 4 are questionnaires that Shane and I have developed. And we've worked with other people to develop those because we need something short and quick, right? We can't assess couple satisfaction every session with a 30-item questionnaire. We need short and fast. Does that make sense? So these are as good as the other longer questionnaires, but they're shorter. We've also established clinical cutoffs and reliable change indexes for a lot of these things, so therapists can quickly know, is my client scoring in the same range as someone who's clinically distressed? A lot of measures have those, the ones that don't we've established. We've also started working with people in other countries to establish those for their countries, which is really cool to think that they can, because they're using the American ones now, which might work and might not, we don't know. So we've done that. A couple other, I'm just going to go over these quickly. These are studies we've done. Adverse child events are really big in therapy if people have had traumatic past. So this says if people have had traumatic past, it predicts difficulties in emotional regulation, which then gets in the way of change, which is really helpful for therapists, right? To know that if the people have abuse coming in, it's going to impact how well they regulate in a session, and that's going to get in the way of their treatment. Shortly after we started this, COVID hit, and we thought COVID was really sad, but as researchers, we were going, we know when COVID hit. We know when clinics went to all online. We can get the date, and we could pull people out that are getting teletherapy and people are not. And we found out that teletherapy is as effective in improving couple satisfaction as in person, which was really nice to know during COVID, right? Because we were worried, are we not helping people? Here's another one with more people with ACEs and anxiety. ACEs lead to more anxiety, and that gets in the ACEs, whether you have ACEs or not, you change it the same trajectory. But you need to know if someone has ACEs and anxiety, they're not going to catch up unless you do something different as a therapist. The lines are parallel, statistically. And so we need to do something different with those couples. And finally, this is the one I'm going to talk a little bit more about, is a latent class analysis of couples. So when couples come in, we kind of think we know where they're going, right? I say, well, I've seen Roy and Tracy. They're my clients. I'm like, I know where they're going. I've seen what's going on. But we need to know more in depth. And so what we did is a class analysis is basically a way to factor analyze people or couples. So rather than looking at questionnaire items, we're saying what types of couples hang together. And then we can start researching if a couple comes in that's that type, how do they change or not change across time? And we found 3 classes. So this class, this is stress. 94% of them report stress, and then these others are important, but this is like a high stress class. A lot of poverty. Not a ton of poverty, but some poverty, right? So we call this the high stress class. We don't know how that contributes to change yet. We're working on that analysis right now. This class, we got, again, high stress, but high everything else. That's kind of our multi-problem kind of couple, right? They're not just coming in because they're stressed. They got stressed. 40% of them are scoring clinically distressed on that. 55% are clinically distressed. And they can report more than one category, right? So there are couples that are clinically distressed in all of these. Does that make sense? And so that's the multi-stress family. And then this class right here, we got high depression and lots of other things going on. And that's our depressed class with other problems. Those are the 3 main classes we thought. So we can now, with the number of clients we have in here, we can get typologies of couples and then start wondering, when you have someone come in with that profile, how does that lead to change? And that's what we're working on now, is how does that lead to change? Because then as a therapist, we can restart. We don't want to make assumptions about our clients, but we want more information going in, right? I don't want to take 6 sessions to assess something. I want to figure this out quicker so I can start helping them. Okay? Benefits for the profession. This is a quote from Steve Harris. He was the editor of Journal of Marriage and Family Therapy, he's our top journal in our field. And he said, the MFT Practice Research Network is, in my opinion, one of the best ideas to hit our research community in years. And he talks about how scholars and people across the country can start using this. We don't share data with everyone, but we do share it pretty liberally. And if you're a participating clinic or university, you get access to the data. Okay? So currently there are 25 publications using the data, 13 theses and dissertations, and 25 publications in process, with lots more planned. So it's starting to take off. People are starting to use the data. The other benefit to the profession is Shane and I have had the opportunity. I have a colleague at Wheaton University. She likes to do research, but Wheaton University is a great university, but there's no infrastructure for research at all. There's nothing for her to do. And she called me and says, there are participating clinics. She says, I can access the data, but I don't know how to do stats. I'm like, I'll help you. So she and I have worked on a couple publications. She's starting to do publications on her own because she's had some mentoring. We also have a colleague at Albany University who has Mickey Freelander, who's a great researcher, done a lot. She has a student who's interested in some things that she didn't have data for, and she's like, hey, can we partner to get this done? He's done a lot of great studies, and he's probably going to get an academic job that I think is going to be pretty good because of our ability to help them. So we've tried to design this in a way that Ben Ogles used to say, a high tide raises all boats. And we thought, how can we design this to raise all the boats in our profession? And so the benefits to the profession are starting to pay off. So you can see we've got benefiting clients, benefiting therapists, research that does a lot of benefits for both, and then benefiting the profession. Lastly, I want to talk about the spiritual benefits. Well, I want to talk about where we're headed next, but the spiritual benefits. To me, this has been one of the most amazing parts of this project, is that when I came home from my mission, I thought, well, I'm done testifying at other places in the world. Went to Korea, we're good. Love Korea, but we're good, right? I'm not going to do any of that again. But Shane and I have had the ability, every country that we've been to, inevitably someone says, because we don't charge for this right now. That's the deal, is we barter in data. You use this, we get the data. You get data for research, get data for your clinic projects, get data for your therapists, and we'll pool the data and use it across the world. And they're like, how are you able to do this for free? And I'm like, well, let me tell you, we have some amazing donors, and our parent organization is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who believes strongly that families and couples relationships are important. And so we've designed this to help those relationships because that's what we believe. I never thought I'd have the opportunity to do that, okay? The other thing I'll talk about in a minute, about the blessings, I'll talk about that in a minute. But in answer to prayers, we had a colleague we were meeting with one time. She was just asking about stuff, and she recently changed jobs. One of the star researchers in our field, I would say. I'm not going to give you her name. But she was talking to Shane, and she said, hey, I recently changed jobs, and I've been praying. She's not LDS, but a deeply faithful person, I would say, based on this story. She said, I've been praying, how am I, like, God, I want to continue to do research, clinical research, but I don't know where I'm at. I had to move for family and things like that. And she says, I found about this, and she says, talking to you guys has been an answer to my prayers because I can continue to do research. And I thought, how cool is it that Shane and I had a hand in that? Didn't set out to have a hand in that, but how cool is it that we could have a hand in that, helping her continue her ability to change couples and families for the better and change the world for the better. That was really powerful for me. This happened in Spain. We did some presentations in Spain, and one of the professors came up to me with tears in her eyes and said, I'm going to cry again, I'm sorry, I apologize. I shouldn't apologize for crying because I love that part of me most of the time. It's embarrassing when I'm in front of a big group. But she said to me with tears in her eyes, why don't we have more professors who share? And I said, I don't know. I said, but I can tell you why I share. And I said, I believe blessings come to me for my benefit, but also for the benefit of people around me. That's a belief I have. And so when I'm blessed to be able to get resources and infrastructure and colleagues and students and administrators who help support this, I shouldn't keep it to myself. I should share it with the world. And Shane believes the same thing. So we have been able to testify on what blessings mean to us throughout the world. I actually quoted President Monson in China. I don't know many people have done that, but that was pretty cool. Jason Whiting, one of our faculty, actually gives... Yeah, Rick was there. I quoted President Monson. Jason Whiting, Professor Whiting, was there, and he was doing something because my presentation was kind of boring, and I quoted him. I saw him in the back row looking up. I'm like, did he just quote President Monson? I'm like, yeah. I didn't say President Monson or a prophet. I said a wise man once said, and I used a President Monson quote, which I thought was a pretty good way to slip it in there, right? And finally, I can't count the number of times we've been guided by inspiration throughout this project. As I said, we started collecting data in 2018. We started collecting data in early 2019. We had no idea COVID was coming. Sometime between early collecting data and other, we had this strong inspiration that we needed to figure out a way. At the beginning, people were using iPads they'd come to the clinic, they'd scan the QR code on their iPad, hand them an iPad, and they fill out the questionnaires and hand the iPad back to the clinic staff. And we thought, we need a way to do this before they come. And so we started using email. And shortly after that was programmed, COVID was starting to hit in China. We had it going well, and everything shut down. If we had not received that inspiration, this project would have been dead for a while. It just would have been dead. And so I was inspired. I think there's been, and I could give you probably 5 or 6 of those where going through this project, we're like, I should do X. I'll share one other. I have one of our community liaisons is the Taiwan community liaison, actually works at the University at Nova. And Rick and I were taking a visit. I don't know if you remember this, Rick. We were going there, and I thought we should invite her, and we should pay for her. We have the resources, and I'm like, she needs to come. We need to pay for her. I didn't know why. So we're waiting in the hotel for her to come, and I get a text from her saying, hey, my grandmother just died. I'm going to go be with my family. And we're like, yeah, go. And she, in tears later, told me, I never would have been able to go to the funeral had you not invited me. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the resources. There's no way I would have been with my family or gone to the funeral had you not invited me on that trip. I thought she was coming to help us with this. I didn't know she was coming to attend her grandmother's funeral. We didn't get to hang out with her a lot that trip because I was sad about that, but I was really glad I listened to that inspiration to do that. So I think this project does, the thing I'm most proud about this project is it checks the box, right? We're changing the profession, we're changing people's lives, we're getting data to research that, and we're able to share our beliefs. To me, it's a great project to check all those boxes. Where we're headed. Okay, this first bullet point, I want you to, there's an asterisk before it comes up. I'm not politicking to Michaela or any of the associate deans or my department people for more money or more resources. But number one, we need more resources. So, and I'll tell you the story. So we hired a project manager a couple years ago, and she was actually, before she came to be a family therapist, was in web development. And she was a great project manager because she could help us with some things that Shane and I didn't understand about web development, like user interfaces and things like that. We thought we were doing okay, and she's like, no, this is crap. You need to read it. Yeah, okay. And she started learning what we were doing, and she says, you know, you guys are running a small company with 2 part-time faculty and 1 part-time staff. He said, if this was a real company, you'd have like 8 people working on it full-time. And I was like, that's about how it feels. I'm not asking for 8 more people, Michaela, just so you know. That's not BYU's mission, so I'm not expecting that. But for this to grow like we want it to, we need to do something different. Does that make sense? We need to change what we do. This has been a hard adjustment for us. We called the tech transfer office. Just out of a whim, I'm like, you know, I'm getting tired of doing all this. I'm overwhelmed. Shane's like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to call the tech transfer office. We called them, and the guy there, Dave Brown, says, this is marketable. I'm like, really? He's like, I know just who to call. So we called a guy to market this for us, and we transferred it to them. They're actually working on developing this into a bigger portal, a bigger project that will collect data more wide. Now, it's not going to be free anymore because they've got to make money, but it can actually go and help improve people's lives in a way we never thought possible. Because we just don't have the infrastructure here, right? That's not BYU's mission. That would be awesome if it was, but it also, I don't want it to be. I didn't get into this to be a business manager. I got into this to do research and help people. So this has been, while it's hard to let go of your baby, it's been interesting to learn what they're going to do with this and how it's going to improve that. And we have the rights to the data in perpetuity. Even if this company that transferred it to, their job, what they do is they take companies that they can scale and sell. So they're going to scale it and sell it. The one thing they cannot sell is the rights to the data. So in perpetuity, BYU has the right to keep collecting data with this and using this as we move forward. So the new software is called Clary. It's coming. It'll be out sometime this month is what they're hoping, probably in a few months. It's still a long process to get this transferred over, right? It's not as simple as, here you go. Shane and I have to be consultants and help make sure the data is clean and get what we want. But it's been fascinating to me how something we developed over time is now in a place where it can be scaled like we want it to that I have no clue how to do. And so I think the one thing there's a lot I want you to take away, but the one thing I want you to take away is that research takes time. Pursue your passions and be stubborn, right? I call it stubborn. People call it stubborn. I call it passionate. But if I'd have quit, I can't count. I probably had 3 or 4 people tell me that will never work. And my response in my head, and sometimes out loud, is always, we'll see. They might be right. I don't know, but I'm going to try. And I keep trying and keep getting at it. And it's actually turning out to be something that when I think about it, I'm pretty proud of. Thank you for your time. And I have to put up one more slide, right? I have to put up this slide. This is where you get your XP points. Thank you for coming, and I'll turn the time back over to you, Roy.
So I want to just further recognize Dr. Lee Johnson by giving him this plaque. You don't have too many plaques already, do you? You got room for that?
I started taking them off and putting others on.
Oh, okay. All right.
I rotate them.
So our thanks to Lee for this presentation, and make sure you get a picture for us with that, Angela.
She's got a phone out. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Angela needs to be in the picture.
Okay.
Yeah. So
We'll
another round of applause for Dr. Johnson. Thank you.
Can I sit down now?
We're also excited to be able to announce the speaker for next year's lecture. That will be Dr. Amy Harris, a professor in history. So if you know Dr. Harris, be sure to congratulate her. And I want to just take a minute to give my full appreciation and thanks to those that helped organize this and prepare the refreshments that we'll enjoy. So a special thanks to the School of Family Life staff and the Dean's Office. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, there'll be refreshments, reception here, just out here behind us. I just want to close with my gratitude for an amazing university where we as faculty, we as staff and students have the chance to just expand our minds, see what the Spirit and the natural gifts that our Heavenly Father has given us, what we can do and what we can make. That is just such a luxury, such a blessing. There's so many people throughout the world that would love to be able to sit down and learn in the middle of their day. And we get to do that. In fact, we even get extra credit for doing it. So what a blessing that is. Thank you again for your attendance here. We will close now with a benediction by Elena Storms, a master's student in the Marriage and Family Therapy program.
Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this opportunity we've had to gather together as students, faculty, and professionals in the field to learn more about the wonderful research that Dr. Lee Johnson has been performing. We are grateful for his work in uniting couples, families, and individuals and understanding them and their emotional levels on a more preterm basis. We are grateful for all who have gathered here today in order to learn more about this exciting new research, and we're grateful for those who have made this event possible. We pray that we may return home in safety and continue this week having thy guidance and love and support. We are so thankful for the Heavenly Father, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.